NSFW, what secret will you take to your grave? We had an old cat growing up named Tuna. He was 16 or 17 and had a long and happy life but was really deteriorating. My mom did not want him put down as it was her cat and she seemed to be in denial about how decrepit and near death this cat was. One day she comes home from the store and my dad calmly tells her that he found Tuna dead under a tree in the sun. She was happy he died peacefully and on his own terms. What she doesn't know is that she actually ran him over as she was leaving for the store. She obviously didn't feel him under the tire but my mom killed her cat and we all lied about him dying in his sleep. My father bought me a beautiful Fender Stratocaster for my 15th birthday. It was unique and gorgeous. I sold it to a guitar shop when I was 20 because I needed the cash. I never had the heart to tell him. I even found one exactly like it almost 10 years later. After I had become financially stable. I bought it in an instant. He still thinks I have the guitar he got me for my birthday. I still don't have the heart to tell him. Best friend told me how much he hated his girlfriend and that in 2 weeks when he completed his move he was going to break it off. He died the next morning. She'll never know how unhappy she made him. That I absolutely hate my wife's special casserole. I stomach it down with a smile because she and our kids love it. That one time I got busted for weed in college and the police department forgot about it and never followed up on it or put it on my record after explicitly stating they were going to do so. Everyone in my family, including my siblings and my dad's mom, believe my dad died of cancer. He really died because he got hep C from IV drug use and later developed cirrhosis of the liver. When my dad got sick, my parents both told everyone it was cancer. It wasn't until 7 years after he passed that my mom told me the truth. Riding in the car with one of my best friends. He suddenly has a very distressed look on his face and frantically starts stuttering about needing to find a restroom. I will never forget the sound not 10 seconds later of him shitting himself in the driver's seat. I laughed my ass off all the way back to his house. I promised I'd never tell anyone. Had a friend who needed to shitty on the 405 in LA. Middle of rush hour. Cars weren't moving. He ended up leaning out of the door and pinching a loaf. The cars around us all started honking, which made it more difficult for him. One of my brothers-in-law, Chet, was dying of AIDS. He was a frail, shrunken semblance of his former self. Just skin stretched over his bones. Another brother-in-law told me that when he was alone with Chet, he put a pillow over Chet's face and tried to smother him to put him out of his misery. But he couldn't go through with it. Poor guy was crying and shaking as he told me. All I could do was give him a hug. What could I say? So, I covered up an attempted murder. The wife of a close friend knows that the friend was closeted and was gay before they got married. She believes that she is the only reason he decided to be straight instead. She admitted this to me on a 12-hour road trip once and then realized she'd said too much and swore me to secrecy. I didn't tell her that. Before getting married, the close friend admitted to me that he wanted to be gay but that he never dared to out of fear of judgment of his rural, conservative family. He almost didn't get married because he didn't think he could pull it off. But it seemed like that to save face with his family. They have been married over 20 years now. That one of my deceased friends constantly cheated on another. He took her virginity. They were together for a while. She loves him and part of her still does. He cheated on her non-stop. They broke up after a while and he later passed away in an accident. Her and I got close and I never told her because it wouldn't do any good. When I was 15 I was walking through the woods and saw my principal having a jerk-off session under the trees. No one would have believed me so I said nothing. But goddammit Mr. McCann. I know what you do in your spare time. Homeschooled? My wife shall never know I put a video of her snoring on YouTube. In 2008 I became a CNA with hopes and dreams of becoming an RN. However, after 4 years, I left the profession. The story I tell everyone is that my MS made the job too difficult to perform. That is not the case. The real reason is that I developed a morphine addiction after a bad accident and had started to steal the meds from the residents instead of disposing of them after they passed away. I left to get treatment and didn't go back because I didn't want to fall into that trap again. I am now 5 years clean. I got my cousin pregnant but she had a miscarriage. We haven't told anyone nor will we ever. Sweet home Alabama. I was using my dad's computer and it auto-completed our city escorts. I was 14 and had no idea what to do. When our family cat of many years died, Dad insisted on putting it in the trash with everything else to be hauled away. Whereas Mom and I pleaded, to no avail, to bury it in our backyard. As I've noted here once before, he remained adamant and wouldn't allow it. At night, I went out and removed our dead cat from the trash and gave it a proper burial in a remote area of the backyard and placed a small grave marker over the spot where it's interred. Dad will never know. Your dad's a bit of a prick. Obvious throwaway. I work at an investment bank. However, to get the job I had to do a variety of assessments which among others included an Excel modeling test. Now I'm quite experienced with Excel. Have built lots of complex financial models. But what this task involved was to make some corrections to a very poorly built financial model, not intentionally bad. Just whoever did it didn't know their stuff well. They leave me in a room with a laptop to complete this task. I open up the spreadsheet and have very little idea where to start. This is just making no sense. As I'm scanning through the tabs desperately trying to find things I'm able to do, I notice something saved on the desktop. Some previous candidate's attempt was saved there. Well, I opened it up and started copying what that guy had done and added a few tweaks of my own. I ended up getting the job. I'd like to think it was a test and you passed. Welcome to the corporate bullshit. That one Christmas a younger female relative of mine and I were fixing our hair in the bathroom and she asked if I wanted to make out with her. She was pretty high, but I ignored the request and have never brought it up again. When I was young, my class held a bake sale in which every child had to bring in some baked goods to be sold. The money raised for some school project or another. Well, we'd never done this before. My mother didn't have a lot of close friends at the time, so she winged it. She made rum balls. I'm not sure if you've ever eaten rum balls, but they're not sweet and they have a peculiar rum taste, not what you'd normally sell at elementary school bake sales. All afternoon, kids will be kids. Those rum balls were thrown, tossed and squashed into the gymnasium floor. Parents bought them and gave them to their kids, who had one bite and ugh. Off they went on their journey. I didn't have the heart to tell my mother that people hated her rum balls. I told her that they were all sold early because rum. But in truth, everyone hated them and they ended up everywhere but in people's mouths. Junior year of high school. My class was registering for next year's classes, so they brought us down to the computer lab. But there weren't enough computers for everyone. Knowing one of the counselors very well, she has me use the instructor computer at the front of the room. Well, just so happened that another counselor was logged into that computer, so full permissions. So, in addition to registering for next year's classes, a couple of my B's turned to us from past classes. A few months later, I barely beat out a good friend for a scholarship because my GPA was slightly higher. I took my grandma's extremely old, sick and immobile dog by the lake and killed her Lenny style. She was a very sweet dog but she was in a lot of pain and very close to death. My grandma couldn't afford to have her put down so I fed her some liquefied chicken and liver. Pet her as the sun went down. Held her then shot her. Broke my f***ing heart but I couldn't have her suffer anymore. She was a good dog. Edit. To the people blowing up my inbox with vague threats and name calling, go FCK yourselves. This dog did nothing but whimper in pain. Laying there on the porch struggling to breath for days. Couldn't eat. Couldn't move. I gave her one last liver and chicken treat that she could taste and sent her on her way in the most painless and comfortable way I knew how. I found a suicide note that my dad wrote in his drinking days. It was tucked in a Bible on a bookshelf. For some reason while my mother was talking to my brother in another room, I just grabbed it off the shelf and found it. I showed my brother and he got rid of it. My father was a good man when he was sober in his last years, but sadly he died of a heart attack a few years back. I will never tell my mother. I once lost one of my friend's dogs for a few hours the first time I was watching them. This was after she grilled me on how they need to be leashed at all times. Apparently they don't come when called. That I called in half a day late to work one time. Said I had the shits and wouldn't leave home until I thought it was safe to. In reality I was at my girlfriend's house 200 km away getting a hand job. Not really a secret as I told couple friends back then. Although I'm pretty sure they won't remember it. And I don't think I'll be comfortable telling anyone soon. But at times I really wish I could. When I was 17 I started online chatting with a girl who was 31. We met once after 3 months. I actually lied to my parents, said it was an online game meetup, and that ended with a quick peck. Then after another 5 months or so, I got my driving license. Meanwhile, I drove 2 hours to a theme park where I spent what is still the most wonderful day I can remember ever having. It sounds cheesy but it was just like a movie, including a romantic lakeside and some panoramic kissing. After that day things started going south, for reasons that I now can see pretty obviously. And then we stopped talking. And I've never heard about her since. It's funny. Most would think it was obviously going to turn out bad. And I think I could see that too. But it's still the memory I cherish the most. Hopefully my browser history. I can show you how to keep it secret. I was helping my aunt move some boxes when she got a new house and I found a letter from her to my grandparents in Ireland. They wanted to wait to come to America when their first grandchild was born, which was my older sister. However, the letter she wrote stated that my mom had cheated on my dad and the child she was carrying wasn't actually their grandchild and to wait to come to America when her son, my oldest cousin, was born 6 months later. I'm not sure if any of it is true but I took the letter and never told anyone about it. I'm a little worried to find out the truth. Getting out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, I tried to fart and shit onto the carpet. I let my roommate find it and hoped that she would blame it on the cat. She did in fact blame it on her cat and I watched her clean up my poop mess. I talk about it on Reddit where it's anonymous, but I never speak about it to my friends and family in real life. Basically, my heart is still completely broken from the fact that my only serious relationship didn't work out. I was such a bad partner and father figure. So it's good it didn't work out. I was just making a mess in their lives. But at least once a week I spend time daydreaming about them and wondering how they are doing. My ex's kid should be looking at colleges this year, assuming he goes. He was a smart kid. No reason he shouldn't. I wonder if my ex ever went back to school to get a degree, like she'd mentioned a few times. I wonder if she got married or is with someone long term. Or if her and the kid just settled into their own little family. I know it's not healthy to obsess. And I can't really change the fundamental stuff about me that made me a bad fit for them. But it can be kind of comforting to dwell on it from time to time. My granny blames my brother for my dad's accident. He wasn't there. He was 11 at the time, but my granny said it was all his fault for changing his mind on what he wanted to do that day, which then led to my dad's accident. It wasn't his fault. It was the fault of the woman not paying any attention and hitting my dad's motorbike with her car. My brother doesn't know and it'll be a cold day in hell before I ever let him find out. Edit for clarification. I don't want my bro to find out my granny blamed him. I worded it a little weirdly originally. Accidentally let a friend's pet goat escape. Chased it up and down one bank of the Mississippi. Friend and I got it back where it belonged. Don't tell. My sister was an extremely conservative stuck-up Christian in high school. She was obsessed with her purity and purity culture in general. My junior year of college my phone broke and I had to use our old flip phone from high school until I got a new one. I found her nudes that she was sending to older men and what they sent back. I also found texts of when and where they planned to hook up as well as her prices. No joke, I threw up in my mouth. Then took the phone outside where I smashed it with a sledgehammer and threw all the pieces I could find in the local river. Edit. This is why whenever a religious figure goes on and on about being gay is a sin, I immediately assume he is the gayest person ever. One time, as a young teen, while sleeping over my grandparents' house, I was sneaking some TV after bedtime. They had every channel. So naturally I found my way to Skinamax. But with my door mostly closed. This wasn't something I was worried about getting caught with. I had the sound off, but was still enjoying some good old softcore pornography. Until I realized the sound from my grandpa's TV in the next room matched up perfectly with what I was watching. I met a guy my dad works with and is buddies with on a gay hookup site. I hadn't met this guy before, so I didn't know he was one of my dad's work buddies at the time. So we meet up and have lots of sex, then say adios and go back to our lives. I wound up meeting this guy again a year later when I went with my folks to dinner. Best part was I also met his wife and teenage son that day too. Yeah, my dad doesn't need to know about this and I'm now friends with his son. He's a college sophomore now. I pray. I don't know why I keep it secret. I'm not even religious, I haven't been inside a church in decades, I have never read a religious text in detail. But sometimes I whisper a prayer to anything that might be listening. I give it names: God, Allah, Udenek, because I'm not sure what I'm praying to. I know it's probably wasted breath. Pray. If it brings you peace. It's not wasted breath. I have to say. I've never heard of anyone praying to God, Allah, and Odin. But whatever works for you. How the really nice TV my mom bought for my grandfather actually broke. In my teens I was playing some online game and had chosen a female avatar. I am not female, but I am of the would rather stare at a girl's ass for hours and hours than a guy's camp. This guy started flirting with me and I just rolled with. And it just kept rolling and rolling. I don't know why I did it. I'm most certainly not gay, but even though I was literally catfishing this, assuredly also, poor teen guy, enjoyed the time I roleplayed a girl. I leave out the last bit when telling the story to my friends. Still feel a little guilty. I just randomly stopped playing one day and never even said bye. Hope he went and found a nice and real girl. He was a gentleman. Joke's on you. How much I actually dislike myself. No one really knows the extent. I like you. That my cousin isn't really my uncle's son. Aunt went to a sperm bank. When she married my uncle he was fixed and she insisted she didn't want a kid. Until mom got pregnant with me, only granddaughter. Then all of a sudden she needed a baby, so they went to a sperm bank and had my cousin. He is loved as hell and my uncle loves him. But the kid doesn't know. Hoping he doesn't have any mystery illnesses pop up because it might kill him to know the truth. Hell. I wasn't even supposed to know, but dad gets gossipy when he's drunk. That my brother tried to have sex with me when I was about 10 years old. I know he didn't know it was wrong and he didn't do me any harm, and I just remember feeling uncomfortable. But he stopped when I said stop. It never happened again and it didn't affect me further in a negative way. I think. I was too young to realize what it meant and stuff. So I'm scared to tell anyone. Because I feel like it's not necessary. I dunno. It will probably go with my brothers and my grave. Edit. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, advice on similar stories in this. I didn't expect so many responses. It makes me feel less alone with this. Even if it's a small thing. It will always feel a little weird though. So thank you again. And I hope you are all doing okay yourself. When I was about 13, I was visiting my aunt and seeing my baby cousin for the first time. While I was holding my baby cousin, my aunt and mother left the room and I was alone holding the baby. So of course I dropped her. Probably about 4 feet to the ground on carpet. No one saw. I picked her back up and said she just started crying for no reason. Almost 20 years later and she seems alright. My mom caught every single fake illness I had to get out of going to school as a kid. I love my adorable crazy hypochondriac mama. I may have inadvertently caused a close friend to commit suicide. He was heavy into drinking and coke at the time. And he started f***ing around on his longtime girlfriend. Being close to them both. I told her. Which eventually led to him trying to rope her into a murder-suicide before settling on just killing himself. No. Do not guilt trip yourself over that. You bear zero responsibility. In fact, you may have saved her life. This one is not on you, dude, unless you were force feeding him coke and alcohol. Whatever happened to the money? Why do I get the feeling you're not actually the real D.B. Cooper? If I answered this, it would no longer be a secret I took to my grave. The excuses I make up to avoid social interactions. My friends have told me theirs, birthday party, terribly sick, phone died, etc. and I've seen them use them. But I won't tell mine. My girlfriend, now wife, was my first sexual partner. I lied to her when we met because I was insecure and also wanted her to feel more relaxed, I guess, if I had some degree of experience. I believe in true love. Freshman year of college, I was in a suite with 2 different sized bedrooms. One of the bedrooms was twice as big as the other and sadly I was assigned into the smaller room. Since I had moved into school a week early, I took the opportunity to swap all signs and tags identifying each room as A or B and spent the rest of the year enjoying a much bigger room. It wasn't until the end of the year I found out that the larger room cost more for boarding. Oops. My mom told me she had an affair with a pastor at a church they went to before I was born. Told me at the cemetery where he was buried, and I doubt she ever told anyone else. Just suddenly visited a graveyard in a nearby town and she told me who he was and that I really loved him, which I did not figure out until later. Since I was about 9 or 10. I never told anyone and she's gone now. Too. So there's that. Today, I remembered the difference between a graveyard and a cemetery. Cemetery is by itself. Graveyard is at a church. Front yard. Backyard. Graveyard. Before I met my fiance, I was the other woman for someone who was cheating on his girlfriend. The guy I was with told me he still loved me and so I sacrificed everything, morals, happiness, time, for him. And he threw me away like a used condom. That was the absolute lowest point of my life and I came dangerously close to killing myself due to several other factors. My fiance knows that it was a bad situation. He knows I was very close to ending my life. But he will never know the details of it. Even though it was before I met him. I know it would crush him to know I was in such a f***ed up situation. I had sex with a hotel worker. So have all of my ex-girlfriends. Where I will bury, my secret chest of actual treasure. None of this, the treasure is friendship shitty. Or mementos that only have emotional value. I'm talking a variety of currencies from around the world. Gold and silver if I can. And other expensive bits and bobs I can get and fit in a standard pirate chest. But there might be a map. I'd halve it. Put half someplace secret. And hand down the other half from father to son. There will be a way to find the first half. Written in cryptic words on the back of the second half. Of course. To prevent my son. And so on and so forth. From just finding the thing. I'd wrap up the second map in red tape and legalese, where nobody can touch the second map until my great-grandson is 18. I don't know how to do that. But I'm gonna f***ing try. I am 100% fully serious about this.